You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome back to Last Call. I'm Erica. Today, I'm here with Erin McVickers, who leads the spirits vertical at Tier Beverages, which, if you're not already familiar with them, they're a data consultancy that partners with NIQ and VIP to help brands navigate what's happening in the drink space. And we're going to be discussing a recent report that the Tier Beverages put out called Buzz or Bust: The Shelf Life of the RTD Spirits Craze. So, Erin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start out talking about the big picture here. You know, the report delves into how the RTD category has evolved across beer, wine, and spirits-based products over the past few years. What are the biggest shifts that you're seeing in terms of share and growth among these three categories, and what's driving those changes?
Yeah, Erica. So we're seeing significant movement across those ready-to-drink categories. Consumers are not loyal to just one format. So they're kind of, piquing their curiosity and trial across the category. So across beer and wine and spirits in terms of exploration. And so malt-based ready-to-drinks peaked probably back in 2019. But consumers' interest, it remains, and it's really driven by like subsegments. So if we think about hard teas and lemonades in that malt space, that's really kind of the ebb and flow there. For spirits-based ready-to-drink, they peaked in about 2020, and they've since moderated a bit, with growth continuing, but it's a bit at a slower pace than we've seen in the past. And then meanwhile, ready-to-drink wine-based cocktails, they've seen a recent resurgence. And they're really led by brands like Buzzballs and Beatbox. And those two brands account for about 60% of that segment. So they're quite large. And as you know, they innovate with flavors all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. One section of the report looks at how prepared cocktails are now driving most of the overall spirits category growth, even as some of the other subcategories flatten out. So what does this tell us about how consumers are drinking? And how is this playing out in the on-premise versus off-premise channels?
Yeah. So the on-premise locations, they're increasing their introduction of spirits-based ready-to-drinks, which are pretty fastly gaining traction and taking share from primarily hard seltzers and FMBs. And this is really mirroring trends that we see in the off-premise. And within the spirits prepared cocktails, ready-to-drink accounts for about 44% of the category sales, while ready-to-serve remains relatively small at around 5% in the on-premise. So you're definitely starting to see some impact in the on-premise that you are also seeing in the off.
Yeah, definitely. The report also included a really interesting snapshot of the spirits RTD consumer that I thought people would be interested in hearing, talking about their age, their income, their lifestyle. So can you paint that picture for us? Who is this shopper and what does a day in their life look like?
Yeah. So if we look at it from a total US perspective, the spirits-based ready-to-drink consumer tends to be predominantly Caucasian and higher income, spanning a wide range from millennials to a little bit older generation. And it's likely driven by trial and category buzz. People are very interested in the category. So all that being said, millennials do make up a significant share of that age group. And with about half of them reporting spirits-based ready-to-drink purchases. So the lifestyles and shopping habits align with this trend. They're active in experiences like Black theater, concerts, youth sports, and they shop at more premium retailers such as Trader Joe's and Whole Foods that will attract a similar demographic profile. So these types of activities and shopping habits are all ones suppliers should lean into when targeting the right consumer for ready-to-drink spirits.
Yeah, definitely. That totally speaks to the occasions. RTDs are so good to take to any of these occasions.
Totally. Absolutely. So why not have that there for them already?
Exactly. It was also eye-opening to see the number of spirits-based RTD SKUs that those had grown 50% since 2021. So, that kind of leads me to add, are we reaching a point of overcrowding? And how would you say that retailers are thinking about managing all of these products on the shelf?
Yes, it's so true. I mean, it is very eye-opening to see just the number of SKUs that are being entered into this category. And with so many products hitting the shelves, retailers, they're really under pressure to make tough choices. Underperformers are going to get replaced fast. And so to win, brands need to stand out. They need to stand out with innovation, packaging that pops, strong trial and repeat strategies, and really clear, compelling stories that tell them apart. If we think about our demographic, profile for these products, those are the ones that want that compelling story. They want to be able to resonate with these brands and resonate with everything about them, whether it's flavor and what have you. So, really, you're going to need to be able to prove and stand out on shelf and showcase how you're going to bring profit to those retailers.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I would say the flavor data, this really jumped out to me. So, teas and lemonades, they definitely seem to be having a moment. But then also flavors like cherry limeade and spicy mango are on the rise. So, what's behind those trends? And where do you think what does it signal about where flavor innovation is heading?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing is, teas and lemonades, they're really having a moment with brands like Surfside, Sun Cruiser. They're really gaining momentum. And, these teas and lemonades, and not specific to those brands, but they're capturing the largest dollar volume and fastest growth rate, accounting for nearly three-quarters of the top growth flavors. So, retailers are really paying attention to this, and they're also innovating in these spaces, other beverage spaces or other category spaces with similar concepts. Like, one thing that I saw at Publix, I live down here in South Florida, and I saw a yuzu habanero lemonade. I mean, so this stuff is really gaining traction, and at the same time, I think spicy flavors are trending. It's likely fueled by summer consumption. But then also these profiles attract consumers seeking these unique taste experience, and suppliers are responding with spicy, sweet innovations. I just read an article about Beatbox coming out with enchiladas next year, which has got a sweet, salty, spicy flavor to it. So I'm interested to track that and see how that does. It's a really interesting, concept. And then, as we move into some cooler months, it'll be interesting to see how flavor preferences evolve, right? And so early signs point to growth in winter flavors like peppermint, white Russian, old fashioned, tamarind, coffee, and hazelnut. So there's all these I think some seasonality that goes along with it as well that will be interesting to see how it kind of plays out in the next 3 months or so.
Love it. Well, I for one am ready for my peppermint barks and all of those cozy flavors of winter. Well, I think that's a great place for us to leave it. So, Erin, thank you so much for joining us on Business of Drinks.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks also to our listeners for joining us. Follow Business of Drinks on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, and tap the notification button so you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. And help us spread the word. Click the star ratings and share on social. It really does help us find new listeners. Finally, if there's something you'd like us to cover on the podcast, tell us. We're at podcast@businessofdrinks.com, or reach out via Instagram or LinkedIn. We want to hear from you, and we really do respond to messages. See you next time.